Hey there everyone, I'm Jeff. This is Tabletop Toolbox and thank you for joining me here on episode number 18 of the Weekly Ratchet, where I am just so tired. It's the Weekly Ratchet. Hey everyone, welcome to the Weekly Ratchet. Thank you so much for stopping by. There is a lot to cover here at the top of the show. First of all, thank you everyone for the birthday wishes last week. Of course, that was Monday last week when I put out the Ratchet. My birthday was Wednesday of that week, but I took off the whole weekend in the first half of the week. So off Saturday all the way through Wednesday. Had a great time. I had all these aspirations to get a ton of filming work done, a ton of editing work done. And I played a bunch of Xbox, and I'm not sorry. I just kind of needed to veg for a little bit, but I had a good week, and thank you so much for all of the warm messages. Also, last week was busy with a lot of graduation stuff going on. My daughter graduated from elementary school. My good friend Daniel, his daughters graduated from high school, and so we didn't get together for any gaming. It was just a very hectic week last week. We also went to the cabin this past weekend, the cabin you saw in episode number 12. I was working on some filming for the Dice Tower Top 100, hoping that I can use a couple episodes filmed out there, audio quality pending, of course, but also had some chores and things I had to get done. I had to clean gutters. And wasn't that a lot of fun? Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. Also, I got a call or a message actually from Tom Vassell back on Monday and had some communications with the team there Tuesday. Turns out I'm going to Dice Tower East after all. He's helping me out with some hotel and tickets to the convention. I'll be, of course, flying down there in July. That it's over the July 4th kind of weekend. I don't know why they picked July 4th to do that, but whatever. So I will be there for that. And as a result, there is a ton of work I have to get done here this month. A lot of videos I need to get done. I need to finish editing the top 100 as he wants those to play during the Dice Tower East weekend. So I'm stealing the show and calling that Jeff Week. There on the Dice Tower. We'll see how that pans out. But looking forward to that. And the last thing I want to mention here before we get into the regular lineup here for the Weekly Ratchet is I want to mention that next weekend, so this is June 8th, is the Meeple Society 24-hour gaming marathon to benefit the Extra Life charity. I was a part of this event last year. I'm not able to make it this year just because of everything going on. But I wanted to do a quick shout out for that event, for their channel. You met Katie and Greg of the Meeple Society on episode 13 when they were right here in this room talking about games that we had played at the cabin. I've known these two since 2021, and they're just good, dear friends of mine. The Extra Life charity is I honestly don't know the entire backstory of it, but it is a charity that supports the Children's Miracle Network of hospitals. And Greg himself was what they call a Riley baby, I believe is the term. And he, was helped by the Children's Miracle Network back when he was a kid, kind of got him through a rough patch, I believe kept him alive, which is of course fantastic. And so they have dedicated some of their shows and some of their series to the Extra Life. They do this 24-hour gaming marathon. Now, it was typically for video gaming, but it has been broadened to support board gaming as well. And in this series, I know they're going to be doing a little bit of video gaming and board gaming. Anyways, Extra Life is a very reputable charity. You can go and look it up. And all the funds are paid sort of directly to that charity. No money goes through the Meeple Society or Katie or Greg, so you can feel very confident if you want to watch that series and make some donations. I don't know that I'm going to have like an account with them. I did last year, so you're actually able to make some donations in the name of Tabletop Toolbox. I'll see if I can set that up, but of course feel free to support the channel directly. And make donations if you feel so inclined. I want to make sure I got that message out again. Next weekend, June 8th, I believe it starts on the Friday. I'll try and throw something in the comments here or in the description of this video and make sure I get the dates and times perfectly accurate. If you're, again, so inclined to check out that series, they'll be playing all kinds of games for 24 hours straight, especially for you folks in other time zones. Maybe you can kind of catch them in what is typically the downtime, the midnight or whatever here in the US. That would be great. And I would appreciate if you could just kind of help them out, even if nothing else, just by watching and commenting during the feed. That would be fantastic. Anyways, that is it for the top of the show here. Let's get into the lineup. Okay, here we go into recently acquired games. I don't have a whole bunch here to cover, but I do want to share a quick funny story. So last week, I mentioned Marvel Remix, and in talking about this game, I flashed up an image of the Star Trek Missions game with sort of the same method of play, the same publisher, all that kind of stuff. And in the process of searching for Star Trek Missions on Board Game Geek so I can grab some imaging, because sometimes I don't have time to do B-roll of footage here at the table, a title flashed up on the screen, and I literally did a double take. I had to go back and edit my text, and sure enough, I saw a title on Board Game Geek called Star Trek: The Deck Building Game. I've looked up Star Trek stuff tons of times over my years of gaming, and I never saw this listed on Board Game Geek. So when I saw it, I looked into it. Sure enough, there is a deck building game in the Star Trek universe, and I had to go and pick it up. So this is actually 2 games. This was, I believe, the original Star Trek deck building game, and this is let me read these off. These are the Next Generation Premier Edition, and then this one is the Next Generation Next Phase Edition. There is also an original series version of this, I'm assuming the same size of box and everything, that is on its way on a post office truck today to get delivered. Now, here's kind of the funny part. This box is empty. I'll explain why in a moment. But, and I think you guys know where this is going. Pardon me. I think you know where this is going. So we've got a rule book, which is way smaller than the box. I don't know why. And then here are the contents. Okay? Let's break this down. All right? We've got a couple, 5 to be precise, D20 dice. These are just used for like health counters. Keep track of your health. We've got 1, 2, 3 decks of cards. These are maybe about, let's say 35 to 40 cards. We have another, you know where this is going. Another 3 decks of cards. And then we have 3, make that 6 blocks of air conditioning foam. And then 2 empty cardboard spacer taker-uppers. And that's it. A little divider in the box. That's all we have. Times 2, because this is all of the cards that were in the other box. I mentioned it was empty. I took these to the cabin because I wanted to just kind of look at the rules and look at the cards and kind of figure out what I've got. And this is all that was in there. Which means that with the third box coming, assuming that it's arranged exactly the same, I can easily fit all 3 of the games in probably half of one of these boxes, rendering the rest of it just worthless. Yeah, I mean, if I rearrange this easily, I could fit all 3 games into just half of this box. And then what do I do with the rest of it? And it's, it's easy to complain about. It's a first world problem. I get it, 100%. But these games are rare. So this came out in 2011. It's from Bandai. I don't know how to pronounce it. I believe they're a toy company. But, they're rare. They're hard to come by. The base game, or the Premier Edition, was like $50 on eBay, and the other 2 were about $30. So I have $100 into this game. You can't buy them new. They're long since out of print. They've been abandoned by Bandai, whatever, after the 3rd game. So it's like, well, if I don't like it, okay, I can maybe sell it off. But what do I do in the meantime? Do I keep all these boxes because of the rarity of the game and let this stuff just sit around and take up? It's like, what the heck do you do when you have way more space being consumed than you need, but there's also a little bit of value to the game itself? It's just a pain in the butt. But I still thought it was pretty funny that I was able to just completely find out of the blue an old game and one of my favorite IPs, and I picked it up. So I'm actually making this my question of the week for next week. I'm doing it early. We'll see if people catch this. But what is have you ever kind of the same thing? Have you ever just found an old game and you just immediately picked it up, sort of sight unseen? You had no idea what it was because something about it just really appealed to you. What was maybe that game? Maybe something that you didn't pick up, maybe you regret, whatever. Again, a sort of nebulous question of the week. Answer it however you would like. That is what I want to talk about. The last game that I have acquired this week, I don't know how long I'll have this, but this is How to Save a World. This is a game that is currently on Kickstarter. The campaign's running right now. In fact, there's only about a week to it left. I talked to the publisher at Burnt Island Games almost 2 weeks ago, and they said, oh yeah, sure, we'll send you a copy to review. And it only showed up on Friday. So we did get a quick play of this in. I'll talk about it here in just a little bit. But if it is something that might be of interest to you, I would check that section out and see if you want to get a copy of this game. Anyways, that is it for new games. Let's get on to question of the week. Here we go with question of the week. Last week I asked you for your favorite conflict-driven game. This was kind of in honor of Memorial Day here in the US. Got some great responses here. As always, thanks for your replies. Kicking off with Canuck Chuck, who said that he doesn't really care for conflict games because he's a Canadian and he prefers strategic or logic games. Hey, I get it, Chuck. No issues there. Of course, not everyone is into conflict games. Typically even myself, although that has been somewhat changing recently. C.R. Pohl asked if chess counts, and that he fondly remembers playing Risk when he was younger, but now his favorite conflict games are Six Nimmt and Donuts. And I gotta say, wow, remembering Risk fondly, that's certainly not something I can say. In fact, I talked about this on a review on the Dice Tower. It was for an old game. I don't even know if I still have. I do actually. It's called DEF CON, a game I reviewed on the Dice Tower channel a while back. Not a big, widely recognized game, but it reminded me of Risk, kind of a attempt at a modern twist on Risk. And I was telling the story of how my mother played me at Risk, and this was part of my kind of therapy for going through ADD when I was a kid. And was trying to make sure I learned how to lose games, right? And so she played me at Risk and just stomped me. I remember I cried. I do not remember how old I was, but I was definitely younger than 11. And but what I always wondered is, did she actually play it legitimately? Did she cheat basically because I had to lose the game, right? That was kind of part of the assignment from the therapist back then. So I do not have fond memories of Risk, but I would also say that yes, chess would certainly count. In fact, I've kind of always wondered if we consider chess to be an abstract game, and I wonder if it really is. Like, I feel like there is a theme to chess, right? These are armies of knights and rooks and whatever else going at each other and duking it out on a battlefield. I mean, still maybe played out in an abstract manner, but I would certainly say that it's a conflict game. Anyways, Rentless says Cry Havoc is his favorite conflict game, that it is an amazing game, but unfortunately too heavy for his group, so he rarely gets to play it. I know of Cry Havoc. I've never played it myself. It certainly has an awesome looking cover. Really neat looking game. Where do you live, Rentless? I will certainly play with you. Simulation Chris said his favorite conflict game is Memoir 44, and that despite not being a fan of randomness in games, for reasons he struggles to explain, he loves the dice chucking element and the randomness that is in this game. That is another one that I have not played before. I almost bought a copy of it. I thought it was like a rare out-of-print game. I don't think it actually is, or maybe it was just out of print at that time. I too am not a big fan of dice-determined combat, but this is a game that I know I need to play at some point. I kind of feel like that's one of those sort of a grail games that at least everyone should try at some point, but I have not gotten to it. Carl Tunist mentioned Llama. I believe that's a Reiner Knizia game, which is a card shedding game where you're trying to end a round with the fewest cards with the lowest points. The lowest score is what wins this game, and he said that his wife will play this with him anytime. I have only ever played Llama Dice. I played it at one of the Dice Tower retreats with Chris Yee, and I hated that game. I think that the randomness of the card shedding, but also coupled with the dice, just made it so unpredictable and random. And I would roll dice, okay, I get to get rid of one card, and Chris Yee would roll dice and just get rid of everything he had. And I did not care for that one at all, but it's the only one that I've played. of Llama. Kay said that she loves Project Elite. What? She says, I like fantasy or sci-fi games when the conflict is us against the game. Okay, Kay, I would never say that I know you, but I did not expect that. I would have never pegged you as a sci-fi gamer. Project Elite is another game that I saw played actually at a Dice Tower retreat as well, but just never played it. But I'm going to have to play some games with Kay for sure. Jeremy Brooks said that he doesn't play a lot of conflict games, but enjoys Survive Escape from Atlantis. You mean this one? I finally won one. I got one. I played this actually with Katie and Greg at the last 24 Hours gaming marathon from last year. We played it wrong. We goofed a rule, and if I remember, as you're sort of taking the tiles off the island, you have to clear out all of the beach ones, and then like the land ones, and then the mountain ones. We didn't catch that. We did them in any order that we wanted. Katie sunk like a ship of a bunch of my people, and so I drafted a tile, again, a mountain one that we should not have done for a while, and it was a volcano, and boom, end of the game. And so it was so funny. We laughed for quite a while after that because, well, oh yeah, you're going to sink my ship. Well, I'm going to nuke the island. Everyone's going to lose. Ha ha ha. And in fact, I won the game. I had the highest score, but of course we didn't play legitimately. But it was still it was really funny that out of a misread of the rules, we had an absolute hilarious game. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I bought a copy of it right away. We've only ever played it once. My daughter didn't really like it because she played it very aggressively, attacking viciously her mother and I. And so when the table suddenly turned around and we started going after her, because board games, she suddenly got very grumpy. But it is a very good game. And there is also a space-themed version of it, which I would love to get because it adds a lot more. You got fighter jets going around and lasers, all kinds of stuff. But again, I think that theme is more appealing to my family, especially with my daughter being a huge marine biologist fan. The space theme wouldn't really go over very well, so I never picked up the space version of it. Anyways, lastly, Wonderflonium said Spirit Island. Like this one. I got another one, folks. This is a very good game for sure. And I'll say that I played this on the app originally and just got destroyed by the app every time. And so I think as a result of that, I've kind of been put off by this game really more than is fair. It's a great game. When I've played the physical copy, I've had some great experiences with it. But I'm still so trepidatious to play it because of how badly the app just continued to nuke me. But a very, very fun game. A heavy game, but certainly one that you can approach. You can kind of grow with it. You can play sort of easy base game and then start adding other modules, adding other components. Tons of expansions for it. I have a handful of them. I don't think I've even played any of those. Daniel and I need to get back to playing that game. Daniel, if you're watching. So I've got 3 favorite conflict games, kind of doing a quick top 3 here. And actually, I'm going to start off with The Last Command. I've mentioned this a couple times here on the channel. I love deck building. I love space games. And I've always really liked Star Realms. And I really do think that this is kind of a Star Realms killer, at least for me. I love the combo-driven sort of engine building aspect of this, the way that you can trigger off bonus abilities of your system cards based on which crew that you have working. The crew is very flexible. There's a lot of unique stuff that he kind of worked into this, and I've just had a lot of fun playing it lately. I need to get my video done for that because I know that Kickstarter is about to go up. Also, number 2, I've got Wormwood. You've heard a ton of this game. And again, this is a game that when I first learned about it, when they were telling me how it plays and what it does, I thought, oh man, I'm going to hate this because you're attacking people, you're stealing stuff from them. But then as I started playing it, I was like, oh man, the engine building is so interesting in this game that all the factions are so unique and you never get through your entire deck. And so every game that you play, even with the same faction, is wildly different from the game before. I have played this, 5 or 6 times, and I've never had a similar game experience twice. Their Kickstarter goes up for this in a week on the 11th of June, and I will be doing a live stream with them late next week playing the game, and I'm really looking forward to that. Wormwood, my number 2. And then my number 1 is by far Robot Quest Arena by Wise Wizard Games, talking about Star Realms, same publisher behind Star Realms. This is a kind of a robot duking battle game. I played it with Katie and Greg at the Dice Tower Retreat, went and picked up a copy immediately. The thing I love about this game, sorry, my voice is going out. The thing I love about this game is that you're just going for points. So you're knocking out other players, you're taking out their robots, but they just respawn, you just keep playing. But as you whittle down their health, the cubes that represent their health becomes victory points for you. And so you're just trying to get points. And I like the aspect of that. You get taken out, oh, hey, you took out my robot. And I come right back and I start swinging in my next turn. There's no penalty for getting killed in the game. The only thing that is annoying, and it's in a funny way, is that, okay, you've got your hand of cards, you're preparing your next turn, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go over here and whack this player and I should be able to take him out and get a bunch of points. And then someone takes you out, which is not a big deal, you're just going to respawn, but now you realize, oh, I don't have enough movement to go and do what I was going to do. Of course, then you sit there and think, well, do I have enough movement that I can respawn and go and smack the person who just attacked me? Because you suddenly had that cold-blooded revenge, right? And it's funny in that it elicits all those reactions out of you, but it doesn't really matter that, all you want to do is just go and hit people and get health that becomes points. That's all you want to do, but you still have this need for revenge to go and take back the person who, just attacked you, although it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who you're getting the health from, who you're getting the points from, as long as you get the points, but you still have that drive. And I just find that very, very amusing. That is question of the week. And if you missed what the question is for next week, then you don't watch the whole episode, do you? So go back and check that out. Okay, wrapping up the show with some recently played games and hoping that my voice is going to hang in there. I'm not sure what's going on. As I mentioned, I went to the cabin over the weekend. I also mentioned, of course, that there was a lot of stuff going on this past week, so I didn't get together for any gaming. But we were sitting at the cabin Saturday night. My wife and I, daughter had already gone to bed, and it was still somewhat early in the evening. And we didn't want to sit there and stare at our phones all night. So she said, well, let's just grab a game off the shelf here at the cabin. And I showed in episode 12 the list of games that we have there sort of on hand at the cabin. And she picked up Summer Camp. This is by Phil Walker Harding. And it is a very light, family-based deck building game where you're sort of exploring these three activities, if you will, that you would typically see at a summer camp. And so I think we played the outdoors, we did the cooking, and we did the adventure deck. Now the cooking and the outdoors deck are recommended for your first play. And of course, again, this is a lightweight family game. So I just randomly picked them. And the adventure deck was, I guess, supposed to be one of these slightly harder ones, or maybe the slightly more advanced ones, if you will. And that was one of the most fun decks I had played. I've played this game a couple times before, and for me, it was just too lightweight. But what was really neat with this was that I started to really just focus on this as a deck builder game. So I started to get the cards that let me draw more cards. I started to get the cards that let me get other cards for free. Your sort of go-to mechanisms in a deck building game. And I walloped my wife in this game. Just, again, one of those things where you play these things enough, you kind of know the right things to do in a deck building game. And what was funny is that she was getting the card. All you're doing is you're moving across these tracks. And when you get to the end, that ends the game. And she was getting all the cards that enabled movement. And I was like I said, I was working on all of the more engine building aspects of the game. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, she's gonna just race up these tracks and clobber me. I need to focus on the movement. But then the cards that I was buying, or the cards I was getting for free, weren't movement cards. And so I was really getting stressed that, I'm going to have this big deck, but I'm not going to be able to actually move on these tracks. And that didn't happen. And I don't even quite know how that didn't happen, but I was able to just keep ahead of her on almost all the tracks. She beat me on one of them. But yeah, it was a wide range at the end of the game, but it was still fun to play. And I'm glad I had just a more enjoyable experience with Summer Camp. And then we played How to Save a World. We played this late last night. This is from Burnt Island Games. I mentioned this is a Kickstarter game. It's on Kickstarter right now, and I believe it ends within the next weekend, like 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that, of June it ends. This is a really interesting game. The rules were a little difficult to get through just because it's still in prototype form. And in fact, you're supposed to have these little spaceships that you're moving around, but in this copy, they're just represented by meeples. The idea of this is that we've discovered a planet somewhere out in outer space that has advanced life on it. And so scientists from, it says all over the galaxy, which would imply that you've already found other planets with advanced life on it, but whatever. scientists from all around the galaxy have built a base on a orbiting moon of that planet to study that wildlife. However, it has then since been discovered that a meteor is careening towards that planet and will wipe out all life on it. And so now you're trying to work on a way to save the planet. You're either going to shoot the asteroid with it or the meteor with a big laser, or you're going to put a shield around the planet, or you're just going to evacuate the planet. And you don't know which of those three systems is going to work, and you don't know how the game is going to end. So throughout the game, you have a base on the planet and a base on the moon. You're taking actions with these little spaceships, as I said, at these two locations. And then some of those action spaces will shoot your worker, because it's a worker placement game, to the other celestial body. So either from the planet to the moon or moon to the planet. You're gathering resources, and you've got 4 different resources and then a wild resource. And you're using those resources to either get more cards, to get more to research those 3 projects, the laser, the shield, or the evacuation. Or there is also sort of a tech, it's not really a tech tree, but there are technologies that you can research on your own board to really just give you some extra points, maybe some minor discounts, unlock a couple extra little things. And there's a lot more to it. Throughout the game, though, you're working on those 3 solutions to the problem, right? The laser, the shield, the evacuation. And when you research it, you put cubes into this bag, and it's a communal bag for the whole game. But then at the end of each round, after everyone has passed, you pull these cubes out of the bag, and they either make the meteor move faster, or they advance those 3 plans. And if any of those plans or the meteor reach a end point on their tracks, the game ends. And then you pull a bunch more cubes out of the bag to see if you can peg any of those tracks of the research projects. So if the laser becomes successful, if you draw enough laser cubes out of the bag throughout the game and at the end of the game, then the laser becomes the pivotal project, the one that successfully defended the planet. And whoever is furthest on the research track for the laser will get the most points. If the laser doesn't succeed, then possibly a few of its cubes will move down to the shield track. You basically the laser is kind of weakening the meteor, and then you see if you draw more cubes out of the bag, and you see if the shield manages to work. And if it doesn't, then the evacuation automatically becomes a successful project, and it is the pivotal project. And again, whoever is furthest up on the evacuation track would get the most points. And that's where most of your points will come from, is sort of resolving those 3 tracks at the end of the game, but you can get some extra points throughout the game. Some of that technology that you can research will just give you little points here and there for doing things. There is also a card play. I mentioned getting more cards. There's a card play aspect to this where you can purchase cards to do additional actions. So you only have 3 workers throughout the game, and you're placing them out to do various things, but you can get more cards throughout the game that give you additional actions to take. And so I quickly kind of realized, oh, hey, getting more action cards means I can do more things, which then I quickly realized meant, oh, geez, now I need more resources to be able to pay for those actions. And you've got these income tracks, and you sort of refill your income at the beginning of each of the rounds. And so it was one of those games where we got a couple rounds into it before I really kind of realized how it was supposed to work. And it's really weird in that there is not a clear path. There's not a, okay, well, everyone is researching the laser, so I better jump on a laser. Well, maybe, but you also don't know if enough laser cubes are going to come out anyways. It may still not matter. So you may have ramped yourself up to the top of that project and it still doesn't succeed, and so you don't get the most points. So maybe then you should have been working on the shield instead. And none of this is to say that it was bad. It was really, really interesting. And it's a game that you're certainly not going to like. You're not going to master this in your first play. You're not going to understand it in the first play. You may not even understand it after a couple plays because you still don't know how it's going to end. And it is really interesting in that just completely random ending and the unpredictability of what is going to succeed. So you kind of want to be in the running on everything, and hopefully you've contributed the most to the successful project. Anyways, probably talked longer about this than I should have. Like I said, they sent me this. I only got it on Friday. The Kickstarter ends this weekend. I'm going to try and put together a quick sort of a preview recap of the game Obviously, I would need a lot more plays of it to understand it. So I'm not going to necessarily take this from a review perspective. I'm just going to tell folks how it plays, what it does, and if you like this sort of stuff, you might like this game, so on and so forth. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty interesting. It did not click with my wife, at least for her first play. She didn't really enjoy it, but certainly admitted that she would need a couple more plays of it to understand it, and I agree. How to Save a World. Okay, that is the end of this week's Weekly Ratchet. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. Don't forget question of the week next week. And I will see you folks all again soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.